an earthquake shock. USGS tells us that the two biggest U.S. earthquake faults could be linked. Experts believe that the two of North America's most notorious earthquake zones could be linked. We're talking about Cascadia and San Andreas. The study argues that quakes made a 1-2 punch of the U.S. coast at least 8 times in the past 3,000 years. In other words, they jolt each other. A quake hit the Cascadia Fault off Northern California coast, triggering a second quake on the San Andreas Fault just to the south. In some cases, the delay between the quakes may have been decades long, but they did take place. The study suggests that the Cascadia Fault, capable of unleashing a megathrust earthquake, a magnitude 9 earthquake, at any time, could trigger earthquakes on the northern San Andreas. That's a fault running beneath San Francisco, of course. Now, several earthquake scientists admit more work has to be done to confirm all this is a provocative idea, but they're going based on history. Professor Chris Goldfinger, geologist and paleoseismologist at Oregon State University, will present the findings at the meeting of the American Geophysical Union. He said that this is mostly a circumstantial case. I don't have a smoking gun. And Professor Goldfinger and his team posited this in 2008 in the earthquakes that took place in the southern part of Cascadia, and that they could trigger quakes, they say, on the northern San Andreas. Scientists reported finding layers of churned up sandy sediment in the seafloor cores drilled offshore. And these layers, called turbidites, usually form when the earthquake shakes the seafloor and triggers underwater landslides. The researchers reported finding turbidites in Cascadia that seemed to form just before similar turbidites near the San Andreas, perhaps as Cascadia earthquakes triggered a San Andreas earthquake. But it was hard to pinpoint exactly when the turbidites formed, and Professor Goldfinger knew he required more evidence. He said, so that's what we did. We went out and got more evidence. We got more cores. Now he has data from 7 cores drilled offshore in southern Cascadia and 7 cores drilled near northern San Andreas. The two sites are approximately 60 miles apart, but close enough to feel shaking from both faults. At 8 places in both sets of cores, the researchers spotted unusual 2-layered turbidites and realized that they described something new. He said, finally, the lights went on for me. The 2-layered turbidites has to be 2 quakes recorded together. Oregon State University academic believes that a Cascadia earthquake shook the coastline first, causing landslides that illustrated in both sets of cores as the first layer of turbidites. Then, at some later point, the northern San Andreas also shook, causing the second turbidite layer to form. Dr. Jason Patton, engineering geologist with California Geological Survey in Sacramento, who was co-author on this 2008 paper, said, this story is pretty convincing. Cascadia turbidites are covered by San Andreas turbidites, so the Cascadia turbidites were deposited first. Others are reserving judgment. Turbidites show that the ground shook at some point in the past, but it remains difficult to tell exactly when or where those earthquakes happened. And Dr. Joan Gomerg, seismologist at U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, said, all this uncertainty leaves multiple, equally plausible interpretations on the table, most of which are not sensational. For instance, the turbidites could have been formed by unrelated quakes happening anywhere across the seismically active Pacific Northwest. This is by Tom Fish on Express UK. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.